Hello friends, and amazing artists. I'm artist Lisa Christensen, and I believe that everyone can watercolor, and to learn watercolor through making cards and giving their creations to the ones that they love. So this video I'm going to teach you how to learn watercolor with watercolor pencils and Inktense blocks. Techniques will be wet into wet, drawing shapes of flowers, and getting an atmospheric background with splattering and green. It's just going to be a fun, wonderful background. Anyways, if you like this tutorial and you found value in this tutorial, I sure would appreciate a big thumbs up on my video and a subscription to my channel if you haven't already. Let's get started. You will want to bring your watercolor pencils and play along with me. Right, let's talk about colored pencils, watercolored pencils, and why I love them. Okay, so I have a couple of different brands. These are colored pencils, but this is Inktense colored pencils that I bought. I bought a couple, like a sample pack, to see if I liked them, and I loved them. And more on that later. They are from Derwent. I also have Derwent just watercolored pencils, like almost the full set, and they are this page right here. I also have Prismacolor watercolor pencils, which I started with. This is what I started with, and then I went with Derwent. I love Derwent. The reason why I went with Derwent and not Prismacolors is the quality of the wood. It doesn't seem to make much of a difference, but it does when you want to sharpen them, and so I have to sharpen these a lot more. Like it'll break, the lead will break easier, so the lead is a bit thicker or more durable on these pencils than I feel like on the Prismacolors. It could just be the way I sharpen them. I can put a watercolor brush in like wherever and call it good. I also have my regular colored pencils in here too, and so that's where I will often put my watercolor brush in, or a couple brushes, maybe even put like a pencil sharpener right in there, and I am good to go for the week. All right, so that's my colored pencil case. I did just acquire this is a Derwent Inktense colored pencils, but in blocks. So I mentioned I bought this set of 4 Inktense colored pencils right here, and I love them so much. It took me like half a day to realize that I have to have the blocks to go with them. And so these are colored pencils, but they're in blocks. And I have used these purples. You can kind of see the edge of this one. I've used this time and time again, and it looks like I have barely used it. So I love them. They do break. And I was warned by another artist that they do break, but that's okay. She says, like, then it makes you feel like you're actually using pastels, and I will say that these are so fun to use, as it is like you're using a pastel. You can use this whole side if you want it. You can use just a little bit. I just love these blocks, and I'm so grateful for them. And they come in this nice little tin. You take that out, and you have all your neutral colors. So you have your brights and your mutes. I mean, you got your rainbow of colors. And so I really like these. I have not traveled with these. I'm afraid to travel with these because of the delicateness of them, but holy cow, there's so much pigment in these, and I absolutely love them. So anyways, I will demo that too as well. But they both come, Derwent is an English brand, and they really have a good quality of pigment. So I'm going to get started with some of the florals that I like to paint with both colored pencils and black, and I'll show you why I would use one over the other. Alright, so I'm going to start. This is just going to be a fun little, this is watercolor paper, 140 pound cold pressed watercolor paper, Canson XL series, and I just want to make some begonias, and I would like a pinkish reddish begonia. I actually bought a plant, a begonia red plant, and their blooms are about I don't know, about the size of a quarter, really. And so I thought I would just draw some begonias and kind of show you my process. And it does not have to be this way. And the leaves are very big. Like the leaves are like 3 times the size of the begonias, which are really pretty too. But I'm just gonna start. So begonias to me remind me of like roses. And so if I were to start, and I have the Scarlet Lake. I'll show you the color. I like to have just a piece of scrapbook paper, and I'm coloring just like as if you were coloring with a crayon, but I am light. It's a light touch, so it's grabbing the really just the texture of the paper. And I have a medium size. This is an size 8 brush. I just, anyways. So I'm gonna see. Ooh, I like that pink. And if I bring it down, that's really pretty. And I'm going to clean that brush off, dampen the extra water off. This almost looks orange. This is a Scarlet Lake, and I know that Scarlet Lake often looks orange next to pink, but I think that'll be really nice. And now that it's wet, if I wanted to, I can go in. This is Scarlet Lake again, and I can just like doodle. Not that I'm going to do that, but I could. And that a very organic, you know, look. And then I can go back in and move that color a little bit. I need to add more water to it, but you get the idea. I can really play around with my lines, with my color. And so you could block some color and then draw, you know, your flower if you wanted to. Maybe that begonia is not totally open yet, you know. So there's lots of ways to use watercolor pencils for your florals and for your art journaling. I personally enjoy being able to have that flexibility where if I don't love a line, I can just kind of use my water to erase it, and it comes out. It might not be perfect, but it'll come out a little bit. But I think those two colors will work together. I'm just going to play one more a little bit. I'm going to add some of the Scarlet Lake just right here, just to see if I like the two colors together, which I'm seeing that I do. So that's fun. That'll be really pretty. And then maybe I'm going to use this darker pink right in here. Oh, I may have pressed a little too hard. If you press too hard, you gotta change up. You're gonna have a broken lead, and that's sometimes why I don't love watercolor pencils. Whereas if you use a brush, you won't have that problem, but it works. Oh, so pretty. Yeah, that will work. All right, so now that I practiced my begonias a little bit, I'm just gonna draw my paper, and I'm gonna, like, if I know they're about the size of a quarter, I probably want to stick to that. So I'm just gonna make like that's the center. It's gonna be fully and bloomed. And I'll start with this side, and they kind of like, when they grow like one petal and then another petal, and then they just kind of keep growing out a little bit. So they're really fun to just practice doodling with, I think. And I can draw and doodle, and I don't want to get it too big. That's about as big as I want it to be, but I feel like I need to balance that out just a tad bit. So I always stop before I think, before I need to. And now I'm gonna just kind of block in some color very lightly. And this is just from my imagination. I could always find a picture of the begonias that I grow, and that would be a really good possibility. All right, now I'm just gonna get some of that. I just want to get it wet. It reminds me of like when we used to paint with those coloring books that had like the inks that you would wet, you know, and then you get this like block of color, and if you didn't clean your water brush, then like it would like get muddy. I don't know. Do you guys remember that? That's so fun. Anyways, now I'm going to go in with my Scarlet Lake, and I'm going to just, it's already wet, which is kind of nice, and I'm not putting a whole lot of pressure But the begonias, they have this beautiful, like, darker red, orangey look to them, like when you actually look at them. So I don't know if they're in the rose family, but man, they're sure pretty. Anyways, so I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna add some of that color, depth to it. You might also call this value. Sometimes people will call it adding more value. But it's starting to look like a begonia now. Now we can go back in here and I'm just going to add more of that beautiful pink. And I might even go over that red just a tad. And I'm using the full bit of my pencil. I'm not using the tip. I could use the tip, and I'm okay using the tip. Leaves are big and they are kind of triangle shape, or maybe more heart shape, but they definitely have this beautiful way about them. So I'm just gonna, I got my form in, now I can just kind of block in the color. So you can tell that I use the side of my pencil to block in the color, and that's why I bought those ink blocks, is because then I didn't have to use the side of my pencil. Not that I don't like to, it's just, I think I like to paint with my I like to paint, and I like to draw sometimes. Anyways, and I'm just gonna, again, I'm adding some value to give it some form, and then I'll go in with the detail. So fun. This is my favorite part, is adding that water and just watching it blend and do a pretty good job. When I know I have pigment on my brush, I'll just use it for a different spot there. Okay, now I can go back in. Sometimes I do have to wait for it to dry, but alright. And I always like to move my paper around too sometimes to get it to right where it needs to be. Alright, and begonia leaves are like really dark, at least the ones that I'm growing. So I could spend hours on this. I don't know if I'm going to, but I'm gonna at least act like I know what I'm doing. I'm going to I'm essentially negative painting right now. Alright, so that is one way. Another way is I'm just gonna put a circle in, and I'm going to then add color. And I'm going to add some more color right in here and right in here, and this will be the start of my begonia. And there's my center. And now, if I can remember how I put the ink on, or the pigment on my begonia, then I can just simply add water
I like stylizing my florals. It makes for a fun time. Alright, now I can go back in and we'll start with Scarlet Lake. We'll see. I might. And because it's wet, I can really just be like really kind of loose and fluid. It's such a fun way to draw. Like, it's really painting. I'm not really drawing. I mean, you could say that it's drawing, but I'm not really. There. And then I'm gonna go in like this. And that's a fun loose floral. Like, I always feel like the more we're too safe and delicate with our florals, the more I don't know, worked it's gonna look. Whereas that looks a bit more, in my opinion, artistic than that. And now doing the same style, I'm just gonna light green, and I'm putting a lot more light. I'm putting a bit more pressure on the light green. And this could be a nice, cute little card of some sort. I've got some green on the on the red that I didn't really want, so I'm trying to erase that. I'll fix that in a little bit. But I think the joy that comes from just painting either what you've grown or maybe what your memory is thinking of is so much fun. And I feel like this needs another fun little leaf. Sometimes if I don't quite know then I'll just kind of.
So I'm speeding this process up a little bit, and what I really am doing is I'm just adding a little bit more of that layering. I'm using a darker green. I believe I'm using like a hooker's green, just any darker green that you have, and I just want to kind of bring in some more of that shading. The leaves are really fun, and I am not a realistic painter, so I like to just kind of make it my way. Anyways, this is supposed to be a fun little motif anyways, so I'm just adding some of that darker green back into the leaves and enjoying the process. And that's really what it's about. If you are enjoying the process, then your art is going to show that. You're going to see that in your artwork. And so then I'm taking a damp brush and I'm going to clean up those edges a bit and smooth out the lines, and that's where you're getting that kind of blended, almost acrylic look to it. It's really fun. And now I'm just going to go back into the rose and do the same thing like I did with the green, but I'm just going to add some more of that form or shape back into the roses so it doesn't lose its value. And at this point it's just a matter of playing around. Alright, and now this is the next leaf, and same thing. And I like to turn my paper around and really do my thing, right? And then this way I can just get that really beautiful look. Alright, now for the background. The atmospheric background that I like to do is I like to add a green wash, and this is just watercolor left over from my palette, nothing new, and I'm just wetting it down. I'm making sure that the white space around the roses are green, right, like foliage. And then you'll see in just a second where I'm just adding a whole lot of water. I'm letting it kind of run all over the paper. This is my favorite part because I really get to just be messy, and I like painting a little messy. I like seeing the watercolor move on the paper and blend on the paper, so this is really a fun process. And this gives it the atmospheric look that that I like to have during like for a card or for a background. This is also a nature journal page that I thought would be a really fun way to nature journal my begonias that are in my garden. And so now I'm splattering. So the trick with splattering is you want to be fast and efficient and effective. And it just takes practice. I use a spray bottle to spray more. So the more water you have on the paper, the less splatter you're gonna really see. So I will be splattering more than just once or twice.
With you why I love Derwent Inktense blocks as colored pencils. They are colored pencils. They're like the inside of the colored pencils, and I really love them. I love that you can use them like almost like a pastel. And so I have some play paper. I'm just going to kind of show you some of my favorite techniques because this is kind of a new product. At least it's a new product for me. It might not be a new product for some of you guys, but as I have pastels, I have pan pastels, and I have regular pastels, and I like using pastels, but anyways, this was done using Derwent Inktense blocks. I'm probably not going to get do the same type of flower, but what I love about it is you can get like a whole, like you can block in a whole bunch of color, right, and then just have like a background, and I'll just kind of, right, you can just get a background going and look and make it really just kind of fun and all about, you know, just techniques. I could also just spray it, maybe that's what I'll do. But then once this dries, it's not going to get reactivated. That's why I like Inktense pencils, is because once it dries, it will not get reactivated. It's like the weirdest, coolest thing. And if you're used to like having pigment reactivate, that kind of throwed me off a little bit. But I'm just going to make this like little textured thing right here. But while it's wet, same thing like with the colored pencils, I can go in and just really get that intense color that I'm looking for. And then we'll just go, it'll be more orangey, but that's okay. And then we can just kind of go in and make our little petals. Something like this. And I mean, this is a very loose floral, but you get the idea. And I'll do one right here maybe. And maybe one right here. And then I can go back in and like, I just, the ink is so intense. It's so pretty. I say ink, it's really just pigment. I don't believe it's that inky, but because I can move it around, but once it dries, I can't move it. So I got this like perfect time to really play. And this is really fun for like landscapes. I love it for florals. But anyways, I don't know if you, I enjoy these Inktense blocks because I can get a whole bunch of color on at once and really just play with the texture and my form, and it's just so much fun, especially if you're a watercolor artist, and that's nowhere near like that. I spent a lot of time on that one, but you get the idea. And so then I could go in maybe with a, no, I'll go continue with this color, but then I can go in and just add some of that form back in, right? And it almost reminds me of like a crayon, but it's so fun. Oh my gosh, we can have a lot of fun with that. So anyways, that's one of the reasons why I love the Derwent Inktense. Yeah. All right. Okay, we're ready. So I'm going to start with a little bit of, and so like with the Jenny Rainey book, the bigger begonia was more of a bowl-shaped flower. Now you'll notice that my lines are not as precise and they're a little bit bigger than my colored pencil flowers, but I'm still doing the same process, the same technique. That has not changed. And now I'm just going to, but you can tell the difference, like these pigments are just full of beautiful quality pigments. I really like them. And you could always sharpen them with like a knife if you wanted to. You could take one end and just sharpen them if you really wanted to. I've seen people do that before. And you can also buy the blocks individually. So if I ran out of this color, number 510, I could go on their website or go to Blick and get just a 510 block like this. And so it's kind of very much like pastels, but they're water based. So now I'm just going back in and I'm adding those lines again. Kind of fun. It's actually really fun. I find it very therapeutic. Oh, so fun. And then I'm going to go back in with a little bit of the different color and just block in some of that as well, just to give it a little bit more depth. I don't know, maybe it's a little more stylized, but that's okay. And now I can move that pigment around a little bit. I do want to leave some white space, so I'm going to try very hard not to ruin the white space. But what I want to do is I just want to kind of clean it up a little bit. Which is what you're seeing me do. I'm curious if you have some Inktense. Alright, and so I feel like I got too much color right there. I don't think I'm going to be able to remove some of it, but I'm sure going to try. Yeah, that's a bit better. And that looks really good. It looks more like a rose than a begonia, but I think begonias can look like roses. I have a yellow begonia that I have to tell myself it's not a rose because it looks very much like a rose. Alright, and same thing here. I'm just gonna, I love these little heart-shaped leaves. In fact, I think I'm gonna do one like this too.
These Inktense blocks really are fun. You'll see me wetting this, and then you'll see me after just adding some color to the wet, and it really gives it a nice creamy, almost oil pastel look, but yet I can still kind of shape it a little bit before it sets into the water and to the paper. And now with this begonia, you'll see me just make little C shapes and then filling in those C's with different reds, and I really like doing that. There's no perfect way to make a begonia or a rose, but I do like doing a circle type motif with those, and all I'm using is the ink on my brush and the water on my brush. I also wanted to share one more product that I love, and these are watercolor pencils, but they're woodless. So this is a full like a full bar of watercolor pencils, like, so it's without the wood, right? Woodless watercolor pencils. And I really use these a lot for florals. I will often stamp an image and then color them with this, and this is really a fun set to take with you, because you can draw with them, you can also paint with them. And yeah, I'll just change, so I'll make a quick little, like, maybe like a meadow-y type wild color scene with these, and show you kind of how I would use them. And you can also sharpen these just like a regular pencil. I don't always do that,
But if I'm gonna make a cute little meadow wildflower scene, I'll just show you. So I like to block in my color first. You could also use just a paintbrush and get water on like this, and I'll show you. I'll do it 2 different ways, and I don't mind. So I could get the pigment on like this, and that will look really pretty. I also have water on my brush, so I'm just going to brush this pigment on like this, because and depending on how much water you have would depend on how much. But you can get some really pretty gradients just from these watercolor pencils. I'm gonna go in with a darker one. I'm gonna add some more water. I can also just kind of splatter, make it more like a sky, and I can get in darker blue. So I got this light blue and this darker blue. And if I don't love the splatter, I can always just, but this is so buttery. I really like these watercolor pencils just as much as I like the Derwent ones. These are just a little less expensive than the Derwent ones, and so if I left them somewhere, I'm only out like $15 instead of like $100 for my Derwent. So I'm more apt to use these in the summer when my kids are busy than my Derwent ones. Plus they're easier to move around, and I'm sure I could find a small little kit for my Derwent ones as well. Alright, so this is kind of wet and juicy. I'm gonna just leave it alone. But I got my sky down. You can see that I use that a lot. Alright, now I want to get my pretty grass in. And I don't want to necessarily start drawing yet. This is just a background that I'm getting. So I'm just going to get this all wet. If you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm ruining my watercolor pencils, I really am not. It'll dry just fine. It actually, I think, helps kind of shape the tip a little bit. But these are a little opaque. It's not completely vibrant and translucent, but I do love these for all the reasons. But I'm starting to get my little meadow, and then we'll get some florals started just in a second. I just want to get this color blocked in.
Once I have my sky and my grass blocked in, now I can add some texture. And these Tim Holtz Distress Ink watercolor woodless pencils are really fun to use. They're very much like the blocks, but they are a little bit more like a, I don't want to say a crayon, but they have a different texture to them than the blocks, so it's really kind of fun. And so anyways, I'm just building up layers before I start my flowers, and now you can see that I am going to use some of the darker pinks and reds, and I just wanted to get some texture onto like this metal area. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm just adding splatter with my wet brush and just putting splatter onto the paper, and then adding little like my paintbrush is just adding some of the flowers that are gonna eventually turn into flowers. And I'll do this a couple of times. I just want to get the texture perfect and the shapes of the flowers kind of in good shape. And you'll see me cleaning up my edges a little bit. I like to be messy, but I also like to clean up my paper. So now that it's just a little bit wet, I can go in and draw where there's a little bit of water, so it looks very loose and fluid, and that is so much fun. I'm also going to add some of that beautiful purple splatter to it, just from the Woodless watercolor pencil. And now I'm just adding more foliage. There's no right or wrong way. I'm just using like almost a technique to like little fur like hash marks. And then of course I want it to look like it's really tall and deep grass, so I'll add some of the blue, and then I'll go back in with the orange and add more depth to apparently I was thinking of like yellowish irises, and so that's where the orange is coming from. But I love orange and purple together, and I often see orange and purple flowers together in the summer, so this is a very summery spring motif that I'm doing that will probably be made into a like a birthday card or a thinking of you card. And now I just wanted to add some birds to my paintings, and I like to doodle first with water to see if that's where I want my ones to go, and I did, and now I'm feeling like it's almost done. And so here, this is just another opportunity to paint a fun motif with your watercolor pencils. You could do the same thing with wood or with non-wood colors. Anyways, I hope you found this tutorial very informative. If you did, please subscribe to my channel. I produce content every Thursday, and happy painting, everyone.